When we announced we were expecting at my husband Jake's surprise birthday dinner, I never imagined it would end with his sister behind bars and a marriage unraveling. I'm 29, happily married to Jake for 7 years, except for one major complication. His sister Blair. She's brought more drama than anyone else in my life. Don't get me wrong, when I first met Blair I truly liked her. But over time that changed. She revealed herself to be toxic, controlling, and impossibly negative. I did my best to stay on her good side. I tiptoed, I compromised, I smiled through insults, but nothing helped. Back when Jake was 17, he dated Blair's best friend, and Blair pulled him aside, saying he should only date someone she approved of. Fast forward to age 23, and she was still matchmaking, complaining he was single and needed someone better. She burst into tears over dinner with their parents, demanding they pressure him into the right kind of relationship. Mom and Dad listened to her complaints, but I was falling in love with Jake in that same moment. From day one I felt Blair's coldness. Whenever I joined family dinners, she'd casually mention Jake's exes, how great they were doing, how they reached out occasionally, always with the joke that he should reconnect. Jake thought it strange and asked her to stop. I wasn't the only one who noticed. She'd get furious when I didn't react, accused me of jealousy, insisted I wasn't good enough for her brother. Once, she arranged for one of his exes to accidentally tag along to dinner at their house, claiming she bumped into them and just politely invited them along. She doesn't follow me on Instagram, but she checks my stories obsessively. If a guy comments on my photo, she'd run to Jake and complain I was sharing indecent content. We'd laugh at her dramatic reaction, but quietly inside my heart hurt. When Jake and I decided to move in together, Blair warned him I had defects as a woman, and that she could find him someone much better. I barely knew her well, so that cut deep. When we got engaged, she suddenly got eerily quiet at the engagement party and stormed out mid-celebration. Later she called Jake in hysterics, furious she wasn't the first to hear the news. She demanded to know why we didn't consider her most important. Then she messaged me, sending a borderline threat, advising how I ought to treat her brother, because she had always been the only woman in his life. I didn't reply. I just left the message unread. I dreaded what she might do next. She continued showing up to bridal events, dragging her opinions into every detail: centerpieces, dresses, even the guest list. Jake and his mom repeatedly asked her to tone it down, but she openly criticized my choices. One day, she overheard me and my future mother-in-law discussing floral arrangements. She snickered loudly, mocking our idea, calling it tacky. It was the last straw. I lost it. I told Blair she was no longer welcome at our wedding and demanded she stop harassing us. Her jaw dropped, like I had betrayed all expectations. Jake's mom backed me. That night, Blair called Jake again, sobbing and demanding he control me, since I'm going to be his wife. He stood firm. I supported his choice. She would stay away unless she apologized. She texted me one apology, and I left it unread again. Despite everything, when we got married I invited her, for the peace of mind later. The wedding was bursting with pinks and pastels, and everyone loved it, except Blair. She arrived in a dramatic black gown and veil, like she was mourning her brother. She wandered through the reception station to station, lamenting losing her baby brother. When Jake approached her gently about her dress, she turned it around and accused me of being controlling. It was humiliating. After she caused scene after scene, my in-laws finally asked her to leave. I haven't seen her since. When our son Liam was born, I made it clear that Blair had no place near our baby. They objected, but my in-laws fully backed me. 2 years ago, Blair suffered a miscarriage. We felt sympathy, so we reopened the door, let her visit Liam occasionally. At first she seemed kind and doting, genuinely affectionate with our boy. But the change didn't last. Once things settled, her old patterns returned. She began complaining constantly about her failed relationships, her business woes, the unfairness of life. She never takes blame, always uses her sadness to rally support. Earlier this year, she got married and invited the whole family, but surprisingly, didn't invite us. When we asked why, she said she feared I would cause a scene, especially now that I had a child. She claimed she'd worn black at our wedding to express how wounded she was, and that I'd likely do the same. Jake called her manipulative. His parents decided openly they wouldn't subsidize her wedding if she didn't apologize to me, and she started blaming me for ruining her celebration. Yet eventually she apologized because she wanted their money, and she's convincing when she wants something. She had a lovely wedding and we attended trying to move on, but 6 months later, she showed up at our door saying her marriage was falling apart. We let her stay for a few days, until it became endless complaining about her husband's lack of support. Despite us being busy with work and family, she fixated on every perceived slight in our lives, especially my fitness routine. Every morning before work I do my workout and shower simple. She bombarded me with questions. Why spend time at the gym? Why shower? Why need to look presentable at all? Once at a lunch she asked Jake if we signed a prenup. He said no. She snorted and implied our comfortable financial life was unstable, warning him to be careful, since women cheat and I might be. She even suggested I was carrying a change of clothes in case I was meeting someone else. Her intrusion left me speechless, until Jake's parents arrived and finally shut her down, telling her to butt out of our lives. But she doubled down, joking that our son didn't look like Jake and raising doubts about his paternity. That triggered something in Jake. He looked her dead in the eye and told her she wasn't a mother yet, didn't deserve to be one, and that her child would be better without her. Silence fell. My parents and in-laws stood by us as he delivered that blow. He apologized to Jamie, her husband, but ignored Blair entirely after. Blair stormed off crying. That was the last time we saw her. Contact was cut. We flew forward. Went from frenemies to strangers. 2 months ago, blissfully unaware of anything brewing, we heard whispers that Blair was planning something big. I'd be lying if I said I didn't dread what might come next. A few weeks before Jake's birthday, Blair made a scene at lunch. Out of nowhere she asked Jake, right in front of our whole family, if we had signed a prenup. The room went still. Jake, stunned but calm, said we hadn't. We both make solid incomes and never felt the need. Blair scoffed, leaned forward like she was breaking urgent news and said, "You never know, Jake. People cheat. People lie. You could get blindsided." I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "What exactly are you implying, Blair?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. That's when she crossed a line she couldn't come back from. She said, "I mean, come on. She's always got a change of clothes. Gym, work, showers at odd hours. If I were you, I'd be asking questions. I'm your sister. It's my job to warn you." The table exploded. My father-in-law and mother-in-law jumped in, telling her to knock it off. But she kept going. "I'm just looking out for my brother," she snapped. Then added, "And honestly, has anyone else noticed that your son doesn't really look like you?" Jake's face turned crimson. He stood up, leaned across the table, and said with a kind of trembling fury I'd never seen before, "You are not a mother. And honestly, you don't deserve to be. If your child ever exists, they'd be better off without you." No one spoke. Blair's mouth fell open. Jake continued, voice low but brutal. "You've spent your entire life playing victim, trying to ruin mine because yours is empty. You sit at home all day while your husband works himself into the ground, and you have the nerve to come at my wife?" Blair began crying. Jamie, her husband, just sat there silent. Jake apologized to Jamie and turned his back on Blair. That was the last day we spoke to her. We cut her off entirely. No visits. No texts. Nothing. Jake's parents were devastated by her behavior and agreed she'd gone too far. Things were peaceful after that. Quiet. Blissful. Then 2 months ago I found out I was pregnant again. Total surprise, we weren't even trying. We planned to announce it at Jake's birthday. A big backyard celebration hosted by his parents. Blair wasn't invited, but she showed up. I watched her waltz in with a fake grin, claiming she just missed her brother and wanted to make things right. Jake was frozen for a second. Then he said, "If you want to make this right, you need to apologize to my wife. You attacked her character." She turned to me and said all the right things. That she'd been in therapy. That she realized how cruel she'd been. I didn't believe her, not really, but I nodded anyway. It was Jake's day. I wasn't going to let her ruin it again. The party was beautiful. Jake gave a speech about how lucky he was to share his life with me. Then we shared the big news. We were having another baby. My mom burst into tears. Jake's dad hugged us both, eyes glistening. Guests clapped, cheered, asked about names. Except Blair. She looked like she'd been slapped. The joy drained from her face and she stared off into space, jaw tight. I didn't dwell on it. There were so many people to talk to, and I figured she'd excuse herself if it was too much. But she didn't leave. She smiled, mingled, even laughed a few times. Then she brought me a plate of food. I made it myself, she said cheerfully. Wanted to make up for all the crap I've put you through. This is me starting fresh. I thanked her and smiled politely. When I glanced down, my stomach dropped. Shrimp. I'm violently allergic to shellfish, and she knows that. Everyone does. I quietly put the plate aside and stood up to get my own lunch. Jamie caught me as I was walking and asked why I wasn't eating. I explained the shrimp situation. He shrugged and said, "Well, I'll take it. I love shrimp." He took the plate from my hands and walked off. 5 minutes later, Jamie collapsed. He turned pale, stumbled away from the table, and dropped to the ground vomiting. Jake and Blair rushed to him. Jamie tried to speak, pointed at his plate, then at his throat. His eyes rolled back. He fainted. Chaos erupted. People screamed. Blair crouched beside him, sobbing. Jake's mom called 911. An ambulance arrived and took him to the hospital. Blair was wailing, shaking, screaming that someone had poisoned her husband. She looked up at me with murder in her eyes. "Did you give this to Jamie?" she screamed. I nodded. "You gave it to me," I said quietly. Police were called to collect the plate and whatever food remained. Jamie is still in recovery. Doctors confirmed. The shrimp was laced with something toxic. Jake and I are now fielding calls from family members who are terrified. His parents are staying at our place. They said they don't feel safe going home yet. No one knows how something so evil could have happened in the middle of such a joyful day. All I know is this: Blair brought that plate. She handed it to me. If I had eaten it. I don't even want to finish that thought. If the police launch an investigation, and they probably will, I have to tell the truth. About the shrimp. About Blair. About everything. I'm scared. I'm scared of her. I'm scared for my baby. And I'm sick over what happened to Jamie. Even if this wasn't intentional, she cannot be trusted around my family ever again. Ever. That night, sitting with Jake and his parents, I could barely get the words out. I told them everything. How Blair handed me the plate. How Jamie ate it instead. How I later realized what might have been in the food. Millie gasped. Paul clenched his jaw and looked ready to call the police himself. Jake's face. I'll never forget it. He looked like someone had gutted him. We pulled up the security camera footage from their backyard. Thank God they had those cameras running all the time. There it was in full HD, Blair handing me the plate. Me passing it to Jamie. Jamie eating it. Collapsing. It wasn't ambiguous. It wasn't a mistake. It was planned. Millie immediately said, "We're calling the police." Paul nodded in grim agreement. Jake didn't say a word. He just kept staring at the screen, his knuckles white. Blair was arrested within days. She confessed almost immediately. Didn't even try to deny it. Said she lost control. That she was going through so much. And that she just wanted to ruin my moment. Jamie was shattered. Jake and I sat with him when he was stable enough to talk. Jake told him, "You'll always be family, no matter what happens next." Then gently he encouraged Jamie to press charges. And Jamie did. Blair begged our in-laws to bail her out. She cried on the phone, saying she was pregnant and they needed to think about their grandchild. But Paul had reached his limit. "You've been protected long enough," he said. "Now you deal with what you've done." Even Millie, who still loved her daughter, didn't cave. She told Blair she was devastated but not stupid. "You could have killed someone," she said. The court didn't go easy. They found evidence of tampering. Turns out she'd added rat poison to the shrimp. "Just a tiny bit," she'd claimed. "She thought I'd get sick, maybe end up in the hospital, but didn't think it'd kill me or the baby." That's what she said. She didn't mean for Jamie to eat it, obviously, but the judge didn't care about her excuses. She was charged with attempted poisoning, food tampering, reckless endangerment, and assault. Blair sobbed in court, pleading for leniency. Said she was hormonal, emotional, misunderstood. That she didn't mean for any of this to happen. That she was just so jealous of the life I had. The judge didn't flinch. She's now serving time. Jamie filed for divorce. He's finally free of the manipulation and the constant stress. We see him often at holidays, birthdays, even just for dinner. He's part of the family. Always will be. And he's okay. That's the miracle. He told me the poisoning wasn't my fault. I cried when he said that, sobbed right into his shoulder. I've been carrying guilt like a backpack full of bricks, replaying it again and again in my head. But he looked me in the eye and said, "You saved yourself. That's what matters." As for us, Jake and I welcomed a baby girl this spring. She's tiny, loud, healthy, perfect. Nate is obsessed with her. Always wants to help feed her, sing to her, tell her bedtime stories. Watching them together feels like living inside a dream. We named her Hope, because that's what she is. Our parents have been amazing, supportive, patient, protective. I started therapy like they suggested, and I'm working through the fear. I still won't eat anything unless I made it myself, but Jake's helping me slowly feel safe again. This chapter is over, but I'll never forget it.